Hello, and thank you for giving up your time to be part of Build Your Future and the video profiles. So if we could just start with your name, role and company you work for.
So I'm Josephine Crossan. I'm a self-employed stone carver, but I work at Hutton Stone. We've got a studio here, and then we also have a studio at Marchman House.
And I'm Michelle, and I'm also a self-employed stone carver and artist. And I also work in this workshop at Hutton Stone, and I also share the studio at Marchman, which is a drawing studio with Joe.
And my name's Luke Batchelor, and I'm also a self-employed stone carver. And I'm waiting to get my own workshop, but I also use this workshop as well.
Thank you very much. And so what was school like for you?
I really enjoyed school. I loved being in the art department, and I also really loved history. So that's what I really enjoyed being at school.
Still for me, wasn't such a great thing. I would have been happier without things like science and maths in my life. But I did really enjoy, I really enjoyed English and drama and art and sewing, which we did back then.
I hated school. Being dyslexic, also being a gay man, was living with that secret when I was at school wasn't a nice experience, so I was happy to leave and get away.
And when did you decide that you wanted to work within the built environment, and what influenced that decision?
So I went to university and studied fine art and history, and during the final year I did my dissertation on the conservation and relocation of St Tylo's Church, which is in Swansea. It's a medieval church that they took down stone by stone and then rebuilt in an open air museum. And so for my dissertation I studied that, and I helped, and I really loved sort of spending time with all the craftsmen and seeing how the old buildings were built, and that then inspired me to study stone carving.
So for me, I went to art school in the 80s, and when I left art school, for me it was a decision that I wanted to make public art that would be out in the streets and accessible by the public, rather than concentrating on making art which would go into galleries. And so that took me to doing a lot of projects with many communities, and working in the streets occasionally, or working in a workshop and then putting the thing in the streets. And that took me down a path in which I really had to learn a lot of skills, and stone carving was one of those things. And after many years people started asking me more and more for stone carving, and I got involved with the stone company here at Hutton, and also some public bodies like Historic Environment Scotland, and engaged in some restoration work as well. So that's what took me into this field.
I think I always knew I wanted to be a stone carver, but after school I didn't know how to train in it really, and sort of pushed to go to university. So I did a degree in stone conservation because I taught a bit of stone carving, and once I had that though, I had to get a job as a stone conservator, so I did that, and luckily, because it is a dying art, craft, the letter carving, there was a bit of funding by Historic Environment Scotland, so I managed to train in letter carving with Michelle and other craftspeople. And then after that I sort of had to become self-employed, and yeah, took the plunge, and luckily I found like quite a cheap place to rent, and had one commission that led to another commission. And, yeah, slowly built it up from there, really, from scratch.
So, could you describe a typical day in your working life?
I mean, I think that what I love about this job is that there's no typical day. As you can see from the projects that we've got around the workshop at the moment, they're all different. You know, me and Luke had never carved Roman altars before, so we had to go and look at Roman altars and see how they were made and different styles and things. And so it's just really varied. So there is no typical day, I think.
I think there are a couple of things I can pinpoint which are parts of the day. They might not all happen in the same order, but at least a part of the day always includes going through emails and making phone calls with clients and doing that little bit of sifting through the actual workload and deciding what your priorities are. But after that, you could be doing anything. You could be going up a building and meeting somebody and going on a site visit. You could be coming into the workshop and carving whatever, a wide variety of things, or quite often you just have to just go to the drawing studio, and the drawing part side of things is tremendously important. It's just as important as the carving bit. It's a bit sort of hidden in the background, but it's there and it takes time, and it's extremely important. And sometimes there are models to make as well, so you get to get some clay out and play with clay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And every site's different as well. Even if you are on a different site, there's different things you're seeing, geography, but also just the buildings, especially with the traditional buildings. Each of them are always different and bring different opportunities and challenges. What are the best parts of your job?
I think for me, the best part of this job is, there's a few things. I think I really like working at Hunstone with Michelle and Luke, and there's a real sort of team feel to the whole place, which I really enjoy. And I think that's quite unusual as well. Like, a lot of times stone carvers are sort of on their own, and you know, we've got each other to sort of help each other out, and I think that's really lovely.
Yeah, and the lads in the yard as well, you know, because you know, we need a lot of help with what we do, and also when we don't know something about stone, when we want, you know, when we need some advice, we've got all the expertise of the people in the offices here at Hudson, and we've got the lads with their incredible forklift skills and masonry skills and sawing skills in the yard here, and the whole thing works, and the team simply pulls together. When we need to move a difficult piece of stone, we team up with the masons and the people in the yard.
So despite technically all being self-employed, there's a real team approach to every project and every element, so you're not felt that that's your job, off you go and do it. It's primarily your job, but there are other people there to help you as and when they have elements that they can help you.
Yes, to my mind it's incredibly important not to try and be a one-man band. It's incredibly important to communicate with people. You know, not just your clients, yes, but to just get advice from people when you need it, and not to be shy of asking for advice when you need it, and also not to be shy of asking for help when you need it as well. In part that's how I ended up being at Hudson Stone, because in part that's why I ended up doing a lot of stone carving, because this was not a skill that I learned at art school. I learned this skill because I had to I had to use some stone in the public art projects in the old days, and I used to go to stone companies and find masons and carvers and ask for help and ask for advice. So, and in turn, I like to help other carvers around me and pass the knowledge on as well.
I think that's quite reflective of just the building trade. You know, you've got a building, there's so many different people that make that building happen with all these different skills and knowledge. So I think it's quite reflective.
Yeah, it's always a great team effort.
Yeah.
What is something that has surprised you about working within the built environment?
I think one thing for me is the surprise that people get when I tell them what I do. When I say, oh, I'm a stone carver, they always seem surprised. So it's obviously a thing that people don't really think about as a career path. Because I've had people say, oh, I didn't even think that was done anymore. So that's quite surprising that people don't know that, you know, there are still people out here sort of doing this. And then also I get quite a lot of questions about the fact I'm a girl doing it. So they often seem surprised at that. But I mean, yeah, there's no reason why girls can't be in the building trade.
Well, I think what surprised me probably is that I graduated from art school 30 years ago, and I've been busy. I've been busy ever since. You know, not always with a great deal of work. In the early days, there wasn't a great deal of work in front of me, but as Luke pointed out earlier, I think, you know, one job does lead to another, and somehow or other I've always had a job to look forward to. Somebody always comes along and gives me some more work.
Yeah.
That's amazing and very surprising.
And then have taken on 2 apprentices.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Luke, what surprised you about your job in particular?
Yeah, probably the same as Michelle. It surprised me how much demand there is for stone carving, how people do value it so much, and yeah, even during like lockdown, it was a really scary time for everyone, but there was still people calling up wanting commissions made. So yeah, that's surprised me.
And you obviously take a lot of pride in your work, so there's one thing that I have recognised from walking down the street with stonemasons is they're always pointing out what they've done, and also pointing out what other people have done maybe not quite so well. Have you found yourself doing that at all?
You do, you definitely look up when you're walking down the high street and see what carvings are there. Yeah.
So they stand out to you more than where other people might just take them for granted, then you've got that attention and that awareness.
You can appreciate the time as well that it's taken.
Yeah.
And especially the older carvings where they didn't have the machines to rough out things before we come along and carve with nice details. It must have taken a long time.
Great. And now the killer question to finish with: what advice would you give to a 15-year-old you about how to succeed in the built environment?
If I had to give advice to 15-year-old me, it would probably be to just get out there and chat to people who are doing what you find interesting. You know, the reason I'm here is because I approached Michelle because she was doing something that I was really interested in. And just go out and chat to people and try and get experience, like real experience. Probably what comes up to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary really to go and do a degree, but getting real experience in the real world is terribly important. You have to practice your drawing for yourself if it's carving you want to do. If you are interested in making things, practice making things, you know, and ask people for help and advice. Go and get some experience with a builder or a mason or a carver. Just ask, and don't be lazy. practice.
Yeah. You get the experience and just do it. Make it happen. Do the drawing and
It's surprisingly easy to build a good reputation if you do a job well.
Yeah. Word of mouth is like so important. Like,
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. People always notice if you do a job well. And remember.
well, thank you very much for your time. It's greatly appreciated.